30 participants already? Wow. Welcome, everybody. What a group.
It's like we have a few more people coming in here. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for the 2021 virtual celebration National Park Service Roundtable event tonight. Again, my name is Abby Whittington. I'm the annual events coordinator for the North Country Trail. I just want to go over, if you've been with us, you might be familiar with Zoom, but some of you, if you're new, I just want to go over some of the Zoom controls. Your bottom tab, you're going to see a microphone. It lights up when you're talking. If you want to be muted, make sure you press that and a red line will go through that. Next to that is a video. Right now, most people have their cameras on, but if you'd like your camera to stop, just click that video button and there'll be a red line that goes through that too. This is supposed to be an interactive session, but there is a chat feature right in the middle. If you want to so you have something that comes up, please feel free to use that. Ken from the National Park Service, I know, and their team will be monitoring that as well. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Chris, and I hope you enjoy tonight's presentation or discussion, excuse me.
Thank you, Abby, and welcome everybody and good evening. It is amazing to have you all here. I'm thrilled to see the numbers that we have logged on already. I think this might be one of the largest superintendent roundtable events in my experience since the trail started. So welcome. For those of you that haven't attended a superintendent's roundtable in the past, it's my intention that this is an opportunity for an open forum, that this is the chance for a bunch of people who really love the North Country Trail just to sit down together and for you to have the opportunity to share with me what's on your mind, to ask the questions that you might have of the Park Service that you've been wondering about, for you to share your thoughts and opinions about what the National Park Service is doing and how we're doing things. I think Abby alluded to it right when we started. Right now, the session is being recorded. I had suggested maybe we don't want it recorded so that people do feel like they can just say what's on their mind and not worry about it. But I guess we've already committed and publicized that everything would be recorded and made available. So have worked it out with Abby that while it is being recorded, if we decide after the fact that we got into some really good conversations that we might want to keep in-house, that maybe we won't post it. We'll record it for posterity, but if the decision's made that maybe we keep it in-house, that we can do that too. So without any further ado, I'd like to open up the evening and invite any of you and all of you to, just raise your hand or chime in and break the ice. I do know that in the past, seems like I have to do a little bit of talking and maybe, throw some stuff out there just to get the ball rolling. If anyone has any topics, I'm more than happy not to be the one talking, but in the meantime, to get things started, I know we've had quite a year and a half. There's been a ton of stuff going on between the pandemic, between the new planning and compliance process that the National Park Service rolled out last year, with the new changes to the volunteer program that we've recently started working our way through, with the new National Park Service chainsaw policy, all these things in the past year and a half it's been heavy. I'm not gonna lie, I recognize it and I acknowledge it, and it's I don't know if heartbreaking is the right word, but I'm going to use that just because I'm not a very good speaker. It's kind of heartbreaking that those were just kind of the way the cards were played for us. That it just happened, and those things were changes that couldn't be put off, that they needed to happen now and couldn't really be put aside for later. Some of them had been put aside for a long time, and we just couldn't walk away and ignore them anymore. So we had to take action. So that's, just a couple things off of my mind. I am very happy to see that there's already a couple questions in the chat. So for the most part, one thing I should back up, I should introduce the North Country Trail National Park Service staff to all of you if you haven't met everyone. With the exception of my administrative officer, who we share with the Ice Age Trail. She's currently on a virtual fire assignment, so she's not with us tonight, but otherwise the entirety of the North Country Trail staff is on with us tonight. We have Ken Hendrickson. He's more or less managing and monitoring the chat for us. Ken's our trail manager. We've got Luke Jordan, who many of you know from, he's been around for a while, our planner. Nick Lazum. Nick, I always try to say your name right, and then I trip over myself halfway through it. I apologize for that. Nick is our new volunteer coordinator, and Steph Ligori, our compliance specialist. Three new staff, never been with the national park or with the North Country Trail before. So, they don't even know what we're like without a pandemic. So, we still have some building to do once we're behind this. But so Ken, what I'd ask for you is just go ahead and I'm going to turn my chat bar off so I'm not looking to the side the whole time I'm talking. You want to just chime in and throw out the questions that we're receiving in the chat, please?
Sure. Yeah, we have, Jaron asked, how can we get a map like the one that's behind you? So how can we get a fancy map like that, Chris?
Well, the best thing to do is get with Matt Robotham with the North Country Trail Association, who is a whiz at maps and has access to River City Graphics, who was the firm who put this map together for us. It's pretty slick. It's aluminum, so it's magnetic. And it also has a dry erase feature, so I can add and wipe off comments. Yeah, most of the time I write something on there and then I forget why I wrote it. So it's a prop more than anything, but I do enjoy it. But yes, by all means, follow up with me if you have any additional questions regarding such maps.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy. Lorena asks, what about each of the crew giving a short synopsis of what's new in their area? So I guess, Lorena, you're talking about Luke with planning and Steph with compliance and planning and Nick with VIP.
So I promised my staff that I would only spotlight them. I'd only give them softballs tonight. But I think that's kind of a softball. I think everybody can pretty much tell you without pre-planning what they're doing and how they're doing it. So Luke, just why don't you give just your top two things that you've got going on right now?
Sure. In the last year and a half, I've actually been able to kind of dabble in some new things. Funnily enough, some things that I actually dealt with at a previous job. Tomorrow's a good example. Get to work with invasive species on the property that we own here in Michigan. Kind of the big project that just wrapped up is getting some contracts for archaeology surveys kind of in the pipeline to kind of prep for future trail construction. That's kind of been the big thing this year that I've been working on. I think I hammered out 7 of those, and I just finished up one last week. So that's for me, that's kind of what's on my plate at the moment, but pretty exciting overall.
So
And behind the,
go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say behind the scenes, Luke's very modest here. Behind the scenes, he's got a lot of other things going on. And one of the things Luke's also been working on behind the scenes is trying to get some of the things that are, I guess, maybe underappreciated. They don't need to be recognized, but kind of greasing the skids to keep things moving forward. So reaching out to other agencies and organizations and having agreements with them so that when we need to go through some of the processes that we need to go through, the pathway to that is already clear and ready to go. And Luke's been really working on that, getting some of that groundwork laid, and been doing a great job.
Yep. And so for the benefit of the trail community, something I'd like to explain about Luke and his role is ever since he's been there, been with the North Country Trail, Luke has kind of been, if there's something that needs to be done and it's not my job, it falls on Luke. And so he has had, just this vast collection of responsibilities and tasks that he gets assigned that have, in many instances, have no relationship whatsoever with each other. So now that we've actually created a full-time volunteer coordinator position, which we never had in the past, which Luke was doing in the past, in addition to everything else. And now that we have a compliance specialist that we never had in the past, that Luke was doing, sharing some of that with me in the past. This is really an opportunity for Luke to let go of some of those other responsibilities and really focus in on planning and his official role that he's supposedly spending the majority of his time in. So as we work on really outlining the roles and responsibilities and how these align now that we've got twice as many people on our staff as we ever have in the past, we're really getting a little more focused and specialized. And so Luke will be slowly evolving into much more specific planning, and to the extent that the chapters and affiliates need it, some real on the spot project specific planning assistance that he'll be available for if a chapter or somebody wanted to do an OLR and needed some help. We'd be able to give Luke that responsibility because that really fits cleanly in the direction that we're moving his position. Okay, Nick, how about you? Your top 2 things right now.
As Chris mentioned earlier, one of the big things I worked on this year was with the VIP sign up process. So that kind of continues. The forms are coming in. I'm keeping track of all those as they arrive, and putting stuff in our Excel spreadsheet to track everyone and be nice, neat, and organized. So please encourage volunteers to continue to sign up. If you have any questions about that process, you can email me directly as well. So that's a big thing. Another thing I've been working on is just helping fulfill chapter requests, whether that's planning chainsaw trainings. We had a number of those this year, and we still have some planned for the fall, and also purchasing supplies that you need out in the field. So those are 2 bigger ones that I've been up to lately.
So I'll steal Ken's thunder and say, like Luke, Nick is not giving herself all the credit that she's due. In addition to all this stuff, prior to the volunteer agreements coming out, working on the position descriptions, JHAs, getting with other parks to see how they do it. In the background, working on updating some of our internal safety documents and safety plans. Just never a dull moment. And, constantly, one of my priorities and all our staff priorities is if you have project needs and you need equipment, you need signs, is that we want to get those to you just as quickly as we possibly can. So, that is, Nick is constantly running, shopping online, running to get stuff packaged, squirreling boxes away in the corners so she's prepared to get something shipped out to you. Just constantly running back and forth. Okay, Steph, you're up.
Sure. So let's see. Recently, I'm very excited. For the past 5 months or so, I've been working with Luke, Matt Davis, and the Arrowhead chapter on a large-scale compliance effort in Itasca County, Minnesota. It's 13 miles of new trail. You might know it as part of the Arrowhead reroute. And we are so close to our final signature. So I'm really excited that it's gotten to that point. Besides that, I'm working on other projects which are much smaller scale, but of course no less important, and those NEPA and compliance needs. And then I'm also working on gearing up for the Trail Project Forum, which will be opening up on September 1st. And just today, actually, I was preparing the PowerPoint for the refresher training that will be on August 30th, Monday. So yeah, the main things I have going on.
Ken, any frosting to?
Yeah,
Put on
I was
the
gonna
cake.
say, Steph is, we're so lucky to have Steph. She came to us with a lot of experience and a lot of understanding and the ability to clarify for us when things need to be taken care of. And how do I say this? She is looking out for all of your best interests and all of our best interests. And we know that when Steph's on the job, she can be trusted. And we've been very happy this past year with all the compliance work. It's been a little crazy. We've been having to try to fill in and get up to speed with some of the regional things and things that are going on. And Steph has done an amazing job, and we're very, very, very proud of the work that she's done.
So just to throw a softball out there to the staff, how many miles of archaeological surveys will we be able to claim by the end of this year?
I think in Minnesota and Wisconsin alone, that's going to be 20 miles, and there's going to be an additional probably 6 in Michigan. Those are the ones currently in the pipeline for getting wrapped up this year. And then we did our first one was last year. We did 5 miles in Minnesota to kind of kick off the process.
Yep. So to their credit, this is all those miles of new trail that have been evaluated, and that we can move forward with new trail construction with complete confidence that we've done due diligence, and we've analyzed the route, and we've had subject matter experts inventory the route and examine the route to ensure that we don't make any inadvertent accidental injuries or damages to archaeological or cultural resources along the route of the trail. And that really speaks to one of the core principles of the North Country Trail is not only the national or scenic beauty, but also the cultural and historic importance of the route and the areas that we pass through. So protecting that is, I know it's important to all of you, it's important to us, and we've, with Steph on board, we have really taken it to a level that frankly, I'm very proud of.
Yeah. Chris, we did have a question from Connie. She's asking, what does an archaeological survey actually involve?
So Luke and Steph, you can arm wrestle for whoever wants to answer that. Maybe
Go for it,
Luke.
Luke.
Okay. So it varies a little bit, but to simplify it, it's basically we contract either it'll be NPS staff from the regional office directly that are, they're certified archaeologists. They'll go out to wherever the segmented trail is and they'll do a survey. And most of the time that involves just a simple shovel test where you're digging a hole every 30 to 60 feet and just seeing what you find. And then what you find in each pit will determine, is there a red flag here, something that we should look at more closely. And that's, of course, paired with any research that you do ahead of time, talking to the State Historic Preservation Office, see if they already know of anything that might be in the area. So that's either going to be done by an NPS staff person or a contractor, depends on what the scenario is. So they'll just go out there and they'll walk the segment, do their shovel tests, they'll do anything additional they feel like they need to do just based on what they're finding. And then when they're done, they write up a report that kind of summarizes their findings and they send that to us. And then we share that with the State Historic Preservation Office and the regional office for additional feedback and comments. And that's kind of like one of the pre-steps into completing the NEPA process. So the information that we get from that gets plugged into what staff is doing for her NEPA process. That's just one of the components that goes into that.
Yep. So there is, and like that was one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, and Luke touched on it, that it isn't even just archaeologists randomly walking along the flagged route of the proposed trail. There's actually a lot of pre-work and research to the area that goes on before they even get out on the ground, that they already have a feel for the history and what they're likely to expect so that they know what to be looking for. And then, if you've ever worked side by side with archaeologists in the field before, they have a subject matter expertise and the experience that oftentimes they can simply identify a resource simply by looking at the shape of the ground. And that was one of the things that I was really amazed at when I've gone out with them in the past. And as they explained what the features on the ground that they were seeing, it all, for me, it kind of came to life, kind of like, I don't have a good analogy right now, but, in my mind's eye, I could start picturing what they were describing. And it would have been stuff that I simply overlooked as a hump or a hill, with no real significance until they pointed out. And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can see it now. So hopefully that answered your question a little bit. What else is in the queue, Ken?
I think that's the only question so far.
Really?
We got a question from Bruce from Bobby's.
Go with it, Luke. What do you got?
Oh, yeah, I did. I missed that one. How does NCT compare with other scenic trails, national scenic trails?
So Bruce, how about this? How about if I ask you to go off mute and elaborate? What are you asking exactly? Or do you not want to be put on that spotlight?
No, well, I thought I'd show my face if I'm gonna ask the question properly. Yeah, actually, I kind of left it open for you, Chris. Just in general terms, we know some details like the length of the trails and where they are. I just thought from a National Park Service perspective, how is the North Country Trail perceived? How much of it is off-road or compared to the other trails, that kind of thing.
So I still say that a lot of the National Park Service compared to other trails, I think we're still a little bit the overlooked largest trail in the nation, that were overlooked. But I think we have really turned a corner, and that the tide is changing. Times are changing, the trail is changing, and people are starting to step up and take notice and really kind of being introduced to the North Country Trail that they always knew about, but maybe didn't give a lot of thought about. The promotion and the education that the association has been doing has been phenomenal. The efforts that we've been making from the National Park Service side has, we're doing things that just nobody knew we were doing before. And it's getting people's attention. Certainly with the passage of the Dingle Act and the legislation that approved the connectivity to the Appalachian Trail, as well as the Arrowhead reroute in Minnesota, that didn't put us on the map quite the way I thought it would, but it's setting the stage. The foundation is there, and we're going to build on it and go with it and run it for all it's worth, and to continue the great work that we're doing to really build that awareness and across, nationally, if not internationally, connecting with new groups, promotions through social media, and just the successes. People will start talking, and people will start to come explore what all the buzz is about. That how did we not know about the North Country Trail? I see that in our future. If you were, I don't know if you were present the other night during the award ceremony, but I had commented that we had the opportunity to have lunch with a couple thru hikers a couple weeks ago, Constantine and Magpie. And I asked them the question, loaded questions like, okay, if you had 2 compliments for the North Country Trail, you're about halfway through it, what would those compliments be? And, they talked about the standard of maintenance and the consistency of the signage and blazing along the route of the trail that was better than the other many national or long distance trails that they had hiked on before. That we really stood out. And I think, things like that is what's going to make the difference is, maybe we don't have, thousands of miles of mountaintops or the ocean crashing, but we've got a lot of fantastic scenery, fantastic resources. But I think the thing that's really going to build that true respect is just how good the trail is that, people can hike it and it's a good hike. So those are a couple of the things I would offer, Bruce. How's that suit you?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Bruce, Joan wants you to pronounce your last name.
Only if Nick will do it too. My last name is actually pronounced like Jajo, Jajo.
Jajo.
Forget the D's and Z's. It's just confusing.
Jajo. Now it's your turn, Nick.
All right. I'll teach you a couple French words for the day. L'oiseau. It means the bird.
L'oiseau.
L'oiseau.
See, my
Nice.
problem is I was trying to make it Creole. Okay,
Every
so we're
vowel,
good
but
now.
only once.
Okay, what else do we got in the queue, Ken?
Oh, Joan also remarked that it's been an amazing transformation for the trail over the past 20 years when it was barely even marked. And as Chris mentioned, the thru hikers that we met with, they're not just, this isn't the only trail they've thru hiked. They've thru hiked almost all of them. I think this is what they do for a living, I guess. And, the fact that the North Country Trail, we don't follow one single aspect, but we transition across that boundary and go through so many different landscapes and so many different things. And they were already remarking on that. And also the fact that they'd already be done with the Appalachian Trail if they were, or they would almost be done by the time they got to us. But they're only around halfway on our trail. Connie's asking, do any national or state agencies get funding to have the NCT on their lands? And if so, how do they use that money?
So they don't get it from us. Actually, someone from the association might even be able to answer that question better than I can. Generally, I would believe that the states may be able to request grants from the National Park Service. I was just the other day reading about a new trail in Los Angeles, and how I think it was, that received over $1 million in grants from the National Park Service for a new trail where outdoor recreation was limited. So I believe states have a mechanism or a pipeline to where they could possibly request land and water conservation funds. But in terms of just like financial incentive to host the trail, not in that type of format.
Yeah, and I think the Forest Service, right, can apply for the Great American Outdoors, GAOA, Great American Outdoors Act funding when we're on there, when the trail is on their property. And I know that there's a few other Forest Service that have done that to apply for trail funding.
Yep, so Great Outdoors Act is a funding mechanism that was put in place to address the backlog of deferred maintenance on National Park Service facilities. And certainly our community recognizes that we have a lot of maintenance needs. Unfortunately, as an organization, we have never had the ability to record anything as our own facility, as a National Park Service facility. It's not like a visitor center at Smoky Mountain National Park or a traditional facility that a National Park Service would. We simply don't have that because it wasn't on our land. The Park Service didn't build it. Therefore, it's not our facility. And therefore, because we don't have any facilities, we obviously don't have any deferred maintenance. So we're not eligible for any of this money. However, the Forest Service, where the National North Country Trail exists on Forest Service lands, they do record it as a facility. It's infrastructure. And so fortunately for them, and fortunately for us, many of our partners with the Forest Service have been very successful in getting funding for North Country Trail projects on Forest Service lands.
Andrea mentions that there's also the fact that U.S. Forest Service gets some annual funding that they distribute for trail use, use in a variety of ways for crews and staff time and things like that. Joan asks,
Thank you, Andrea.
Joan asked, I would like to hear Luke's perspective on how the trail has improved since he discovered it. Luke, you're on the spot.
Yeah, I can answer that for sure. It's been an interesting thing to observe as somebody who I actually started as a volunteer a couple years before I did the trail, and then ended up hiking the whole thing. Got to really see different levels of maintenance, different levels of markings, and different level of awareness. In my time here, all that has skyrocketed. It's gone way up. I think social media plays a big part in that. That was 2013. That was 8 years ago, which is crazy. But I think a lot of the work that NCTA has done and the volunteers do on their outreach is a big piece of that. I think that the few long distance hikers that we do get, it's traditionally kind of an event because it's kind of been a rare occasion. So that brings, I think, some additional attention. And more recently, I think the Hike 100 has been huge for that, giving people something obtainable to accomplish. They get some kind of recognition when they're done. People love patches and different kinds of swags. I think that was kind of a huge step for getting at least more interest and more support. But now having seen it from kind of behind the scenes as well, and being able to help some of that along, whether it be maintenance or kind of moving toward a more consistent standards, is it's satisfying to see that for sure. But yeah, I think across the board, everything has improved since I've been here for sure.
Great. Thank you, Luke.
Peter's asking, how are this past year's compliance processes coming? Our Wisconsin roving trail crew is still standing by for an approval at the Wisconsin-Minnesota border.
So, oh, go ahead, Steph. Is that a softball?
Yeah, I can take that one. Feel free to fill in, Chris or Luke or anyone. I think that's a two-part question. So I can answer both. I can answer both of those. As far as how the past year's compliance process is coming, I did recently crunch some stats. We received over 100 projects last year. About half of those were on US Forest Service or other federal lands. The NPS does not do compliance actions for those projects, although we do communicate with the US Forest Service. But of those projects that were on non-federal lands, about 34 of them had the potential for implementation in 2021. So for 2021 projects, the NPS has already completed their compliance review for 16 of those. And some of them were as easy as the NPS taking a look at it and realizing that the NPS does not need to do any further compliance for it. And there's about 8 to 10 that are currently in progress for completion in 2021 still. And then the ones that have not been started yet are primarily because of some landowner delays. And one of those that is in progress for completion in 2021 is the Wisconsin Roving Trail Crew project that you mentioned. And we do have a contractor for that ARC survey, and that ARC survey will be happening very soon. So that's where that's at.
So one of the holdups on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, in order for us to put these contracts out to bid, we first have to run them through centralized contracting specialist. And because we don't have any control over that process, we're kind of at their mercy. And we acknowledge that for this particular project, we're about 2 months behind schedule simply because we have no control over that contracting specialist who has to be involved before we can even put it out for bids and get the process moving. So, we recognize, I knew in advance, and hopefully I acknowledged and apologized in advance that I knew that some projects would get delayed this year simply because we've never done this before and we didn't know who was going to be doing what. Moving into next year, we're all becoming a little more familiar with this, and one of the best ways to prevent delays is to really think ahead. Not the project that we think about doing this week, but thinking about the projects that we do next year or 2 years from now, and letting us know about those, years in advance. If we know years in advance, that even gives us the opportunity to pursue additional funds to support the projects. It helps us be able to forecast accurately just how much money do I need to set aside for ARC surveys this year. Things like that. So the project is moving forward. It's not moving forward as fast as we would like, and certainly not as quickly as you would like. But we're right there, and despite the delay, we'll do better next year. I promise you that. What else, Ken? So we've got about little more than 15 minutes left. So if you've got outstanding questions out there, don't be shy. This is a once in a year opportunity to sit and have this conversation. Of course, you can always call me or email me, and we can always have this conversation. But this is kind of the unique setting to put that out there in a more community format.
Two more questions here, Chris. One's Peter's expanding on his original question. Is there anything that the local chapters can do to help reviews move forward, such as identifying prospective contractors or helping and locate and mark sites of interest? I don't know if Luke, if you want to answer that one, but from my perspective, as Chris has said, some of that is beyond our control, and this 2-month delay this year was really unanticipated. We I got to compliment Luke and Steph, because Luke busted his he worked hard to get the process down, and we actually got these in earlier than anticipated, but because of the way it works, I know that frustratingly sounds like a government excuse, but it did kind of go into a black box where the contracting professionals had to take over, and Luke and Steph were good at poking them with sharp sticks to keep them motivated. So I think we did learn lessons here. As far as identifying contractors and things like that, I don't think that's as much of an import as really, as Chris said, knowing in advance, like giving us the advance notice. Steph mentioned that we have the next round of planning projects coming up in will be open September 1st to October 1st. As much advance notice as you can give us to start us getting the process down, and then if we are more months out, then these sort of 2-month delays are less of a hurdle in the process. And I know it is frustrating, and it's been frustrating for the staff as well. But we are, as Steph said, we do anticipate that will be done this fall, and most likely the actual work will occur, the survey work will occur in August, correct, Luke?
That's correct. Yeah, I haven't gotten the green light on my end yet, but last time I spoke to the contractor was a week ago, and they were hoping to get out there around Labor Day. So hopefully, and I can expand on this question a little bit. As far as identifying contractors, as far as I know, that's a list that the regional office kind of has, and when we have a contract set up, it goes through a bidding process, and anybody who's in the system theoretically gets a notice of the bid. And if the contractor wants to bid on it, it's usually like 7 days or something like that to submit their bid. And then we then get the results of that and kind of sift through them and identify, we would like to go with this one for this project. And that process, unfortunately, was delayed this year. When we went through the process last year for the first time, that whole process turned around in about 3 weeks. So it was pretty quick. This year, we had a different person assigned to us. We had a different contracting specialist that works a little bit differently. So it ended up being 2 months instead of 3 weeks, and we weren't anticipating that. We thought that the 3 weeks was a pretty consistent thing, but it turns out it varies whoever the person is. So that we didn't see coming. That was unfortunate, because we actually had the contract submitted way back in April, and we didn't get it signed off from the contracting officer until July. So there was a big delay there that we weren't anticipating. And then once we submit our end of the contract, it's out of our hands until we hear back from the contracting officer that the bid has gone out and that firms have actually bid on it. And then we kind of step in again from there, identifying who did bid on it and who are you going to have do this survey. And then you have like a kickoff meeting where you kind of explain this is kind of the scope of the project and kind of hammering out any last details. And then it's up to the contractor to actually schedule when they're going to be out there. But they do have a certain amount of time. In this case, they had 90 days from the time of award to get the entire project surveyed and then get the final report to us. So between now and end of October, that's kind of the timeline for the entire thing to be wrapped up. That includes having the final report in our hands. So it's ongoing.
Thank you, Luke. I will add to that if you do know local contractors, and I'll put, out there to anybody out there, if you do have a project coming up, and you do know local resources, whether it's, archaeological contractor, if you know people, by all means, you can include that. You can let us know that. We don't always have to go through contracting. If it's a small enough project, that falls underneath a certain threshold, we don't necessarily have to go through contracting. So that's a lesson learned late in the game this year. But I think for now, I'd like to reach beyond archaeological surveys, because we only have a little bit more time.
Yeah, we have a few more questions here, Chris. Larry's asking how many VIP forms have been filled out.
So we've had a lot of forms filled out. A lot of them have been filled out correctly. But that's something Nick is still working on, and getting the forms that have been submitted corrected. Nick, what's our current tally?
I just took a quick look and 277. And I saw, Larry, you're from Chief Noonday. So if you're curious about your chapter, there's about 31.
So that's a good start, but I think it's, we'll keep beating the drum and, shouting the message from the mountaintops that it is hugely important and hugely beneficial, that everyone actually signed the volunteer agreement, the volunteer in parks agreement. That is what gives you the benefits of being a National Park Service volunteer. And without an agreement in place, you're certainly a volunteer, but that really limits you. So by all means, I know there's some reading behind that, between the position descriptions and the job hazard analysis that are associated with the positions. I know I've been doing this for the federal government for a few decades now. I know. But that volunteer agreement is with the National Park Service to document your relationship, that you are doing work on behalf of the National Park Service, is of huge benefit to you.
Chris, we got a question from Joan. Are there any more land purchases on the horizon?
Joan, right now, what I'm currently pursuing with that strategy is purchasing easements rather than outright land ownership, since we have such a limited staff to meet the responsibilities of the federal government owning land. So right now, my strategy is to simply own easement, so that we're only buying the access to the land and not the land itself. Until I have a better solution for how I meet the responsibilities of being a federal landowner, I'm hesitant.
And Nick just gave me a heads up because I didn't see it. But sorry, Brad, it seems that you had your hand raised for quite a while now. So I want to let Brad ask his question.
Okay, well, let me circle back real quick before Brad's question. Something I do want to add, caveat to what I just said, Joan, and to the community, that if the situation is right, if it's a property that's small enough that there is a very clear solution to how we would meet those responsibilities, I would certainly entertain it. It's not off the books, but to buy 10,000 acres in Pennsylvania would be a really hard sell for me, but maybe 20 acres outside of Grand Rapids. Yeah, we could talk about that. So Brad, sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, that's all right. I raised my hand because I just wanted to give a shout out to Nick for her hard work on the forms and the VIP program. And also to let her know that the pass you get for 250 hours, I put it to use last week on Isle Royal. And the ranger said, "Oh, I've never seen one of these before." And I said, "Well, you must know all about the North Country Trail." And so that was great. Thank you, Nick.
That's great.
So were you on Rock Harbor or Wendigo, Brad?
I was at Rock Harbor, and the whole time we were there hiking, my wife and I wore our twin bright green North Country Trail shirts, and everyone eventually knew who we were. That we saw you before, and so we were certainly the trail ambassadors on Isle Royal. So
Great, thank you for that. And just for the benefit of the group, that Isle Royal is where I started in my post-military career. While I was in college, that was my first post-military job, was working maintenance at Rock Harbor. So spent 4 seasons there before I left and went to the Forest Service. Sure is great to be back.
Are there any
Okay.
other hands up that I missed?
This is Eric Gray Horse Marquette. I've read about the current administration's plan to buy more federal land. Do any of you have an idea how that might impact our trail? Like I thought the federal government was going to try to buy 30% more land a year, if I read that right.
I haven't read that. I do think I have seen references to what you're referring to. For me, that doesn't necessarily mean anything for us because yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've got the Great Outdoors Act, permanent funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and people want us to buy land. And I want us to buy land. I want us to finish the trail. But at the same time, until we have the staff that comes with all the responsibilities of the resources on the ground and the administration and the bureaucracy that goes along with owning lands, we're in a difficult position. So, I mean, as it stands right now, I don't even know what kind of trees or what kind of animals might be on the property we own now. I've asked for help since I've been here. I'm getting biologists, botanists, cultural resources out to take a look and tell us what resources am I responsible for out there. Just came up today. Requirement for a fire management plan for the properties that we own. It's like, well, don't exactly have any fire management officers with the North Country Trail because we've only owned land for 2 years, 3 years, and we only had a staff of 2 about 2 years ago. You know, our knowledge of wildland fire is limited to me being a grunt firefighter with the Forest Service who's been out on a few fires, but certainly not a professional level to where I can independently write a fire management plan. So there's a lot of stuff out there that it's a chicken or the egg conversation. And I've had that conversation and I will keep having that conversation no matter how many times they tell me they're tired of hearing me. I just have to find new audiences whose ear might not be tired of hearing me.
Thank you, Chris.
Seems like we had some discussion here about other volunteers being excited about using their volunteer passes. And Nick is reminding us that if you have any questions about the America the Beautiful past, please email her. And her email is listed in the chat, and you can get it from any of us as well if you don't have it. It looks like we're getting about 3 minutes out from the end. I don't know if there was any final hands raised or final people that were holding their burning questions.
I do see that Joan asked about plant inventories. In some, I don't know if we responded to that question in the chat box, and I just haven't gotten there yet. But as a rule of thumb, we can do an inventory of what's known by the Fish and Wildlife Service in their databases of what is likely to occur along a proposed project. And then we are able to, look at the species that are known to occur and compare that to the potential impacts. And then we consult with the Fish and Wildlife Service for their concurrence of our conclusions. In some instances, if we have a case where, oh my gosh, for sure there are calypso orchids in this area where we want to build a trail, we might very well hire a contractor to do a botanical survey if we know that we've got an area where critical habitat or endangered species are certainly existing. We might want to identify exactly where those are. So we could potentially hire botanists or, wildlife biologist if that was the case. Any specialist, if it really gives us a cleaner picture of what's really on the ground and what will we need to do to protect them. So it'd be a case-by-case situation.
Well, I actually feel like a noob here. I don't see the ability to see where I don't see any other hands raised, but that could just be me. I do want to say that we greatly appreciate all of the volunteers, all of your time, not just tonight, but everything that you do all year, every year to keep the trail moving forward. And, without the volunteers, without your efforts, we know that there really is no trail. So you can always contact us and ask us any questions that you might have. And Chris, I'll kick it back over to you. Do you have any closing remarks?
Well, I think you just said them, Ken. My appreciation, my respect for the volunteers is immeasurable. During our opening ceremony, when we went out in the breakout rooms, I kept ending up in a breakout room with Joan, who I've probably known longer than maybe anybody else in the association, with the exception of maybe Ed Morse or Ed Chappell. I think they were probably the first people I met. But I think going back, that was what was formative to me, was the respect that I earned, that I gained working with the volunteers when I worked for the Forest Service, that I knew the North Country Trail. I was passionate about the North Country Trail, but what really hammered it home for me was the seriousness and the professionalism of the volunteers that I was working with. And, at that time in my career, in my life, I was really trying to meet their standard and gain their respect and to keep their respect. And I continue to do that, even though, maybe I've had a few promotions along the way, but that's still, just, a daily thing that I strive to make all of you proud, and that I do things that you can respect. Maybe you don't agree with it, but you can respect and know that it's coming from a sincere commitment to the trail and to the community and the volunteers who are working so hard to build and maintain the trail through thick and thin, pandemics, storms. To the storms, I do hope all of you are doing well after the recent storms we've all had. I spent the weekend helping my mom out in southern Michigan. She got pummeled pretty remarkably. So I hope all of you are well. And thank you all. I really thought maybe we would have some hotter, stickier topics, but loved your questions and loved this opportunity. So thank you all. As always, as Ken said, don't hesitate. You don't have to wait to the superintendent's roundtable to talk to me. So anytime, reach out. That's what we're here for. So thank you again. Have a good night and enjoy the remainder of this year's virtual celebration. Look forward to seeing you all in person as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Is it back to you, Abby?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you to the National Park Service for hosting this roundtable and allowing people to ask any questions that they might have. And we appreciate it. And yes, we only have 3 more events left for this year's virtual celebration. Tomorrow is our last 1 p.m. Eastern event, and it's MAP Tools. So you're going to join Matt Rabotham and our other trail coordinators as well. So that's our last daytime, and then we have 2 more evening ones. So again, if you can't make them, we'll have these recorded and on our website as well. So thank you again for all tuning in tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.